Good morning, fantasy baseball friends. It's Mike Carter here from Breakfast with the Beats. As always, joined by my good friend Dave Funnel. Dave, happy Saturday morning.
It is a very happy Saturday morning. So I thought you were going to say something else there, but I'm happy. You're happy. We're all happy. Yeah, happy Saturday morning. And I don't know, the weather's nice outside. It's about time we're getting some heat here. I don't know about down where you are.
It's very muggy and humid. This is what I refer to as bad fat guy weather. And being a fat guy, I can tell you that this is not ideal weather for me. The humidity, the heat. I'm going to go home from here and cut the grass and do all the sexy chores things that dads do on Saturdays when they get home, right? So work on that. You have one more week of school left, right?
No, actually, I have two or three
Oh,
more. We're done on the 26th.
oh,
Yeah,
God,
it's a
my gosh.
long.
I'll already be halfway through my summer school session when you're still in your first session.
Do you like having these months off? Is it because you're used to it? Because I don't know. In my mind, I've always had July and August off. I know everyone at home is like, "Oh, you get months off, and now you get to pick and choose." But um, do you like having those months off? I don't know, weather-wise.
I've never had a summer off since I've worked here in the school that I'm at. We have a year-round school, so we have multiple
Yeah.
breaks that are built in. So we have like a 3-week break from mid-May to like mid-June, and then we have a 5-week summer school session because our kids really need that structure on a daily basis in the summer. Many
Right.
of them don't work, and so their parents just don't want them laying around for 8 or 9 weeks before the next fall session starts. And
Okay.
then we have another 3 weeks at the end of July through mid-August before we start again. However, I'm of an age when we were in school, when I was a kid, we were in school through June, early June, and then had most of June off, July and August off, and then didn't start school until early September. And now, because of the fact that we have air conditioning, which we did not have when I was a kid in schools, now we have a situation where we can, we don't have to worry about the weather like what they used to do back in the day. And so I do prefer from a time off standpoint, I would prefer to have a more normal summer. However, this is good for me too because it gives me the way that I work and the way that I am now in my advanced age, and the fact that I'm balancing some health issues that go along with that. Having the time off in between the sessions is actually golden for me because it allows me to kind of recharge the depleted battery. Even though I'm still working, there's nobody here and I'm not interacting with the students and a little bit with the staff, but we all get that break that we need from each other, I think. And that's not a shot. That's just the way that it is. I think that's true in any business that you might be in. A nice little break from everyone else and spending some time at the desk doing some things, but not overly taxing myself on a daily basis. So
That's
I
what they
do like
say,
it.
right? Don't they say absence makes the heart grow fonder? Isn't that that's a
That is
saying?
the phrase, Dave.
I
Yes,
didn't
that
just
is
make
the
it up.
phrase.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
well, there you
Absence
go.
makes the heart grow fonder, except for my staff. I don't think that they grow fonder of me after they've been away. I think that they're like, oh, this guy again? Oh boy.
That, that means you're a good. That means you're a good boss, though, right? Because if you
Man,
have
well,
people who like you that
that's
will respect you.
that's a debate for another time, my friend. We'll talk about that some other time. Okay, mug check. What coffee mug are you drinking out of today?
From the Disney classic, Robin Hood. Have you ever seen this?
Oh yeah, I've never
Oh,
seen the mug, but I've seen the program. Yes,
yes. It's such a good movie, and well, here we are. So
I could not find my usual Blue Yeti mug this morning, and so I found this gigantic IU mug that my mom bought for my wife. My wife and I both went to Indiana University. That's where we met. My stepdad also went to
hmm,
Indiana University, ironically, and so she bought this for Katie a year or two ago. But this is essentially a vat of coffee.
yeah.
I mean, I had one before we got on the show this morning. I woke up because I know we were recording early. I had a cup, but then I took this with me. I can barely hold it with one hand. It's like a chalice of coffee.
That's a
It's
lot
gigantic.
bigger than mine. Like you need two hands going on there. That's
Well,
a lot
there's a
of
joke in there
coffee.
somewhere, but I'm not going to make it. Okay. All right. Moving right along, folks. We're moving right along here. Happy Saturday to everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is our ninth show of the season already. And we have some things that we're going to talk about today. We're going to start with talking about some relievers to know. That's sort of my, I guess, specialty, if you want to say, quote unquote.
It is.
in the fantasy baseball industry is covering bullpens and what I've done with that. We've got some names for you to think about. We'll do our actual beat writer roundup right after that. And then we're going to talk a little bit. The theme of today's show really is going to be aging. And aging is something that we all do. And whether we want to or not, it is a gift to be able to age, I would say. And we're going to talk about some players that are aging and having some struggles and try to piece together whether or not that's age related, skill related, or what might be underlying some of those things there too. Remembering, of course, as we say that, growing old is mandatory, but growing up is optional, as I just proved trying to make a stupid joke today a few minutes ago. All right, Dave, let's get into it. So we were talking a little bit offline about these relievers, and people are always looking for relief pitching help. It feels like in our game, doesn't it? People are looking for guys that can get saves. They're looking for guys that can get holds. Moreover, some are looking for help with ratio controls and also getting some strikeouts. Dave, there were a couple of guys that you wanted to highlight that we were going to talk about that we might be able to keep an eye on for saves down the road. Who was a guy that you had on your list that you wanted to chat about first?
Okay, so I've got 2 in total. One I think could get some saves. The other I'm not sure, but he's just been overall solid. So the first one is out of the Padres bullpen. Brad Glee?
Bradley Rodriguez.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Bradley Rodriguez. He's been outstanding this year. A really young guy coming in to his own here. He started the season on the team after impressing last year, and overall he's got a 1.57 ERA and a 1.08 WHIP. He's striking out not as many as you'd like to see, but he does have some good pitches, including a changeup that has an 0.95 batting average, supported by a 123 XBA and a 41% whiff. So he does that, but he also counters that with he's got a 98.2 mile per hour fastball and a 97.6 mile per hour sinker. So he does a great job of masking things and making them look just, you got to make that split decision. So he's someone out of the pen that I think if anything happens to Mason Miller, he could be an option down the line. Mason Miller does have quite the injury history, and I know they're also thinking about extending him into a starter. That was the talk. Now, he's been so good as a closer this year. I don't know if they start that process, but if the Padres are out of contention, maybe down the line they decide to, give Mason Miller 2 or 3 innings to try and stretch him out as that starter, and then they transition someone else into the closing role.
And Rodriguez is an interesting case study because of the fact that he gets such a high ground ball rate too. Those middle inning guys really make their mark. You're noticing that more around the league, aren't you? That these middle inning guys have incredible ground ball rates. He's got a 58.5% ground ball rate right now, which is 96th percentile in all of MLB. His hard hit rate is 28%, which is also in the 96th percentile. Barrel rate, 1.2%. Guys just can't square him up. And so they're having a hard time, finding him and getting that. Those sinkers that explode at 97 miles an hour, it's almost impossible to do anything but hit the top of those, which leads to the high ground ball rates. But Rodriguez is definitely a guy to know that would be in that conversation should something happen with Miller. We know that A.J. Preller is not going to trade Mason Miller,
No.
or they're not going to move him into a starting role at this time, although there has always been this frequent discussion that he might come back and somewhere along the line be a starter, even though he's the number 1 closer in all of baseball. But I do think that Rodriguez would have the ability to leapfrog over Jason Adam and Adrian Morejon at this time, just because they like where those guys are in their roles. And then Rodriguez could be someone to know. You also had another guy out of the Atlanta bullpen who has been outstanding and very under the radar.
Yeah, I've got Dylan Lee here, and he's been really, really good this year. And not even just this year, but he was pretty good for most of last year as well. Right now, he's got a 1.21 ERA and a 0.61 WHIP, and that's supported by having 3 pitches all under a 160 batting average. And they're all supported with an XBA of at most 224. And what was really impressive is he's got a 33.7% K rate and a 3.8% walk rate. That is outstanding. Now, he is blocked by Iglesias and Suarez in front of him. So I don't see many opportunities for saves. He might get the odd one here and there if, they were both overused. But he's been so good every time he's been used. Knock on wood, it continues. He's been really, really good, and I just like watching him pitch. Actually,
yeah, the Braves bullpen is outstanding. When you really take a deeper dive into it and look around, Iglesias has been terrific, and you don't hear a lot of people talking about it too much, but he and Suarez both have ERAs under 1. Iglesias' strikeout rate is over 30% again. So he's not really showing, knock on wood, any clips in the armor here at all in terms of coming back to earth or aging. Dylan Lee is probably the only super reliable lefty they have in that bullpen right now. They just jettisoned Aaron Bummer last week. They have Dylan Dodd, who's more of a middle relief type, who's also actually looked good in a abbreviated sample there. But there's a world in which we live that Lee could get 3 to 5 vulture saves, in situations where maybe there's a lefty heavy lineup that's coming up in the 9th inning and they decide not to use Iglesias there. So that's someone to know. That's definitely a good name to know. And even if you're just looking for ratio controls and help, 121 ERA and a 33.6% strikeout rate, those are things that you can use. And like you and I have always talked about, I would way rather have a really, really good late inning reliever who's not going to necessarily get saves that can help me with some of those other categories and not take a, number 6 or number 7 starter that might blow up and explode like Anthony Kay did last night for the White Sox. You just need to be able to have some guys that are going to stabilize that. And it's funny because I say that all the time and then I don't actually do it as much as I should.
It's all about follow through. We can say something, but we have to do it. No, I was just going to add too that I like Dylan Lee. I have him actually in in a points league, so a Fangraphs point league, and there they take holds into account too. So for points leagues and for leagues with holds, I would definitely be looking at him.
Right. I have a couple names for you too. I won't go into as grave a detail as you did just for the sake of time, but a couple of guys to know that are getting saves or could be in a situation where they're going to get some saves if you're desperate. We have an Alex Lang sighting in Kansas City. The former closer for the Tigers, who had 26 saves in 2023, has resurfaced in Kansas City much more often due to the lack of success that Lucas Irseg has had in that role, which is surprising. I know a lot of people had kind of handcuffed Irseg to Estevez, and Estevez has been hurt since opening day. He's in a progression throwing, but even when he was there, he's not been looking real good over the last couple of months if we recall and kind of look back at that stuff. So Lang has kind of risen up that ladder. He's got 2 saves this week. Irseg looks like he might be getting bumped out of that role. Kansas City is listed as a committee when you look at roster resource, but Matt Strahm would really be the only other guy there, I think, that would get save opportunities besides. So that job seems like it's wide open. And if you're really desperate for saves, Lang might not be a bad look this weekend. 2 other guys that don't exactly have the role, but are moving towards the idea of maybe being in that higher leverage. Shifting over to Pittsburgh, they have a young man there named Wilbur Dotel. And this is more of a spec pick, Dave. Looking at what the Pirates are doing, they are 4 games above 500 right now. They are playing actually pretty good baseball. I guess it depends on how they feel about Gregory Soto and whether they're actually in this or not. But Gregory Soto could become a very valuable trade piece here, as we get into the summer, depending on what happens with Pittsburgh. If they stay in it, maybe not. If they fall out of it, Soto makes sense as a piece that they might move. And if that were to happen, that closer position would be wide open. Dennis Santana is back down in middle relief, which is where he belonged all along. He's got an ERA approaching 6. He didn't really belong in the closer role. Dotel has a 108 ERA, a 27.9% K rate, and has limited walks at an 8% clip for him, which is fantastic. So Dotel was a name to know there. I don't think that Carmen Majinski or Mason Montgomery are guys that would be in that closer role. He might be a good one to know there if you need it. And then finally, the last guy, And shout out to my buddy Rick Graham, because we both were kind of talking about this guy over this last week. It's sort of a name that you might know from the past, but if you go to Cincinnati's bullpen has really struggled. The one guy who has really not struggled in that bullpen is Sam Moll. Lefty coming back, throwing a little bit harder than what he's thrown before, and he's actually been quite good. He had a save last weekend, the only save that they've had in the last week. Tony Santillan seems like he does not want the closer job. He's got an ERA that's approaching 7. It's just not been very good there. They lost Pagan, they lost Pierce Johnson, and Graham Ashcraft looks like he might miss the rest of the year. So Terry Francona is trying to piece it together there. And when I look at that, I say, why not Sam Moll? He's got a 25% strikeout rate, a 2.39 ERA, and he's in the middle of a situation there where it's wide open. They're going to continue to try to figure it out and mix and match as much as they can. But he's a guy that I think could get some saves, and especially considering the struggles of Santillan. So those 5 guys there, folks: Bradley Rodriguez and Dylan Lee for Dave, Alex Lang, Wilbur Dotel, and Sam Moll for me. So those are some names that you could look at if you ever need help with relief pitchers. You guys can always reach out to me on Twitter, and I would be happy to have a conversation with you about that. All right, Dave, shifting to the beat writer roundup. Polarizing player for you and me, guy that we've talked about a lot over the years, a real talent. Injuries have sort of betrayed him. Ineffectiveness is what's betrayed him now. You found an article that Dan Hayes wrote covering the Twins on Royce Lewis. Talk a little bit about what he's doing, because I think many people probably realize that he's been very hot since he went back down to AAA.
Yeah, so the article is called "Twins Remain Optimistic About Red Hot Royce Lewis, who's homered 7 times since the demotion." And it talks about how he looked really lost at the plate before he got demoted. He had a 25.4% K rate after his injury. He came back and he was actually swinging at everything. Mm-hmm. There was one point where he swung at, I think it was 14 out of 15 pitches that he saw in a game. So at one point he had a 163, 261, 279 average. And the team thought it was a mental breakdown. It was something that could be done, that could be fixed mentally. So they wanted to try some low pressure environment situations just to take the pressure off of him and see how he could do. Now, these are updated totals, not in the article, because since the article happened, he's done other things. So since he's gone down, he's batting .340 with a .417 OBP, 868 OPS with 8 home runs. The team did it because it worked for them a while back when they sent down Miguel Sano in 2017. Mm-hmm. He came back a different person. Now, even though for him it was physical, it was a nice reset in the sense that they could go back to their roots, understand what made it work for them before, and come back a new person. So the article then goes over, these are some of the numbers that they went through for some of his at-bats. He's hit home runs that were off a 91 mile per hour fastball and a 95. But he also has some huge exit velos, 114.1, wow. 103.4, and then a 115.7, the highest of his career. Now, not in the article, he's actually been getting some reps at second base as well. I don't know where to stand on him because you know me when it comes to injuries. You fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. He's been hurt, about 6 or 7 times. So it's a lot of fooling going on here. I'm still out on him, but I wouldn't mind being brought back in if I could get him for dirt cheap at the end of my roster and hope that maybe he could be the guy that even in this past offseason, we all thought he might be.
That's kind of a cool thing, right? Like, he's in this weird spot where he kind of needed that reset and maybe he's getting it. And I love the connection to Sano because I remember that very well. Where I'm a little lost on what the Twins are doing is why are they playing him at second base? Are they down on Keyshaw? Are they thinking that Brooks Lee is going to be their starting third baseman now? That's what I am concerned about. I wonder if they somehow think that playing him at second base will keep him healthier than playing third base. Like, that was the one connection in the article that I didn't feel that I understood after looking at it.
Yeah, I don't know either, because I know they have someone there. So I don't know. They have Kalen Culpepper in the minors, who's
Right.
looking good. Maybe he can come up and take third, and then they want to put Royce. I know Keishel hasn't really played well.
He's been terrible.
Or pitched, but he hasn't played well at all, to the point where they thought he would be this year. So maybe there is some concern. Mind you, Keishel in spring was playing all over the place. So he's got some potential to play elsewhere as well.
Yeah, I wonder if the thought there might be, they could use some outfield help. I mean, they're usually running Trevor Larnach and Austin Martin, who are both fine players, out there on a daily basis. And I don't know that they really want to be doing that on a daily basis. They don't really seem to have a lot of choice right now. I mean, they have James Outman as their other outfielder on the bench, he's never really panned out, unfortunately, even though he's a highly skilled guy. It's an interesting lineup that they have there, because you wonder, I look at it and I say, well, why not first base? I mean, Cody Clemens is, in his 30s. He's not a world beater. He's a nice guy to have on your team, but he's also playing every day and hitting third there. So I don't know. That's interesting. I'm going to really be taking a look at that to see how that plays out over the next few weeks, because Lewis is a guy that I do have kind of earmarked for when he does come back up as a cheap fab acquisition, especially if he can hit down the stretch and do some, he's hit home runs and done really good things in bunches before in the majors. So maybe he can kind of catch that again. I hope he does. I've enjoyed watching him play over the years.
Yeah.
Okay, Dave, we're just going to switch over to the Mets, and boy, poor Torres and his family, the Mets fans. He's kind of a split. He's a Mets and a Yankees fan, but I know his dad is a diehard Mets fan. They have really, really struggled. I'm not laughing at them. I'm laughing with them. For those of you that are Mets fans, I feel your pain. Remember, I'm a Sox fan by trade, so it's been a rough spell for me as well. But they're really, really having a hard time this year putting together anything. And you see the blooper reels with guys not able to pick up the baseball, or lack of communication between the guys in the field. You found an article from Will Salmon this week talking about some of these struggles and what has been going on.
Yeah. So before that, whether or not you're a Yankees or a Mets fan, I think right now they're all Knicks fans right now. So
oh yes, they are.
They're
about to come screaming at you. Be ready.
Yeah.
Here come the New Yorkers.
But the article is called "Is this where a bad Mets season takes its cruelest turn?" It emphasizes a game that had happened early in this week or last week, and it was just incumbent of what was happening in their season, and it was the sign of what it was happening. It was poor throws, missing catches, bad luck on small balls out of place, stuff like that. And it emphasized that symbolized how this season has gone, and it feels almost like it's a cursed season for this team.
Mm-hmm.
But really, they do have. I question how well this team has been put together.
Mm-hmm.
They've had an abundance of injuries. They've had Polanco, Lindor, which was bad luck, and Francisco Alvarez.
Mm-hmm.
And they're beating the bad teams, but they do have some bright spots like Carson Bench, AJ Ewing, and Soto's been out of this world this year. But it's $370 million.
Mm-hmm.
And their best hitters coming in the season were Soto and a potentially aging Lindor. Now, Lindor's injury was fluky. It was a hamate injury. So you can't really put blame on that. Soto's been hitting out of this world, but he does have a history of forearm injuries that he's somehow playing through. They also came into the season with their best pitchers being Peralta and Devin Williams. So that's a good foursome to start with minimal questions. But they do have a lot of holes, like Marcus Semien. He's aging. He's not getting any younger. He's not the guy he once was. Mark Vientos. He's been hot or cold. There's no in between. They have an injury-prone history with Francisco Alvarez and Bo Bichette. And at one point, they were relying on MJ Melendez and Vidal
Your
Brujan.
guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's my guy, but I don't work in baseball probably for a reason, because I'd be all over MJ Melendez. Yeah, it was just, this article was just really talking about how the Mets have been bad and they might continue to be bad. I don't know. Am I alone on this? Do you think that this team is set up for success, or is this something that it's just really a lot of money poorly spent?
I feel like when you have a roster that's constructed, I think that's what you touched on earlier, which is the key point. The roster construction is such that when you spend a lot of your money on high end type of players, and those high end players then either become hurt or they're ineffective, you just don't have any bench depth. I mean, look at what they're carrying on their roster right now. And this is not to be offensive towards anybody who's a Mets fan or anybody who actually plays for the Mets who might actually hear us say stuff like this. But, you know, they're trying to get by. They brought up some young guys, like you said, like Benj and Ewing, who have played okay, but they're not getting really anything out of Bo Bichette. I mean, can we just finally just stop with him? Can we just stop? I know he's supposed to be hitting 282 when you look at the expected batting average, but results are results. 5 home runs and a stolen base is not what you paid for at the draft table. I'm sorry, it's not. It's just calling a spade a spade. I'm done with Bo Bichette. So I have him in a dynasty league that I'm in, but I don't have any other options. I have to play him, and every day I look at the stats. I'm like, is this guy ever going to turn it on again? Like he's 28. You know, he's done it before. You know, maybe he'll catch fire here as it gets warmer. You hope so, but it's pretty frustrating. To your point, when you spend a lot of money on those types of guys, you're not going to have a lot of depth. You have Eric Wagaman, you have Vidal Brujan, as you said, you've got Hayden Singer as their backup catcher right now to Torrens. Like nobody can plan for those things as well. But when you're paying somebody $45 million a year, there's going to be some parity at the back end of your roster, is my point. And with that division being what it is right now, you know, the Braves are running away and hiding. They're 43-21. They have an 8.5 game lead over the Phillies, who are 5 games above break even. The Mets are in big trouble there. They're 14.5 down already at 28-35. And they don't really seem like they have the ability to be able to go out and get what they need. I mean, they're starting Jared Young at first base, who's batting cleanup for them. And he's a fine player. I mean, I have him in a couple of places too. He's been great and helpful for my fantasy purposes. But if you're a team that's hoping for deep playoff aspirations, they just don't have the depth to be able to kind of consider that. And also, like you said too, the back end of their bullpen has been was terrible. I mean, for a while, Devin's not been good. He's better now. Luke Weaver, who they signed in there to a big money contract, has been not much better than Williams. You know, and so they're relying on Austin Warren and Cionel Perez. That's like, oh my God, just more guys off the scrap heap, because they don't have the ability to be able to go out and get some of those other types of guys. Now, in their defense, they also have some significant injuries. I know it will come as a shock to those who are listening, but Luis Robert is hurt without a timeline to come back. Anybody ever heard that one before? Alvarez, Polanco, Lindor. Lindor, I think, is in a running progression. I'm hoping that I have him in a couple of places. Kodai Senga, if you're still a believer or want to believe in the talent there, which I do, he's due back next week. He just made a rehab start this week. So there's some hope there, maybe, if they can get those guys back and get going in the right direction. But it has been a long season for Mets fans, and I am sorry to those of you who were expecting great things there. It's very difficult when your team that you prefer to follow is struggling and there doesn't seem to be any way out of it. I've gone through that for years with my favorite team. So hang in there, Mets fans, if you're listening. And then, Dave, finally, the last article here. I'm glad that you pointed this one out, because this was one that I really liked and was excited to read about. Kyle Harrison and the Brewers dominating the Giants last week, his former team. It seems like Kyle Harrison has kind of tapped into something a little bit more there.
Yeah, so the article by Andrew Baggerly from The Athletic is called "Brewers Kyle Harrison, After Dominating the Giants, Leaves No Doubt That He's in a Better Place." So the article starts by reminiscing to his past about how, when he started back in 2023, he did really, really well. 2024, he had some shoulder soreness and reduced velocity with some poor results. But then this was pretty telling by Logan Webb. He said, and I just took it right from the article, he was just going through some early career things that most guys go through.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to get used to throwing more than usual, pitching with more adrenaline than usual. I wasn't very good at the start of my career either. There's some growing points, but he was going through it. He's always been a stud, and I think I said it last year that he's going to be a star. It resonated with me because that was something that I think we don't necessarily remember when it comes to fantasy, in the sense that these guys, they're human beings and they come in, they're pitching with adrenaline, they're excited to have this new thing, and it's a new job, it's a new position, and we kind of need to remember that and have some patience with it. And I think it's important to remember that if someone who's supposed to be this amazing guy struggles at first, but maybe after a while starts picking up, it might be the time to buy in on that, knowing that he has this prospect pedigree, that he's supposed to be good, and maybe he got over that mental hurdle. But anyways, that's a sidetrack of what I was as I was reading this article. So the reason for this article too was because he was pitching against his old team here, and it was really, really good in the sense that Harrison was upset that he got traded, and he's been upset that he's been traded twice, and he kind of felt that that the teams didn't really believe in him or want him there. So Pat Murphy reassured him before the game. He said, "It's not about you and where you were. It's about where you are now." I thought was great. And it really grounded him to the sense that he actually pitched really well in this game. Harrison also talked about the Brewers system, and he said they just do a really good job at understanding the player, what he needs, what his bad habits are, and how to reinforce those good habits. So what they did for him was, these were the changes as he came to Milwaukee. He moved from the first base side of the rubber to help his slider. So he moved over on the rubber to give his slider more space. He also changed his arm angle from 24 degrees to 33 degrees.
That's a big difference.
It was big, but it was because he was healthy, he was growing into his body, and he didn't have to work around shoulder fatigue anymore. And I thought that was a really big point there, because when we see these pitchers drop their arm angle, we don't necessarily know why, but knowing that Kyle Harrison increased that arm angle because he was healthy might be actually an indication that when pitchers drop, maybe they aren't healthy to begin with. But that's just another side note. The last thing was a reason why he looks so effective right now is because his fastball and his sliders, they look exactly the same coming out of his hand. So it's very hard for batters to make that split decision. Overall, though, I came out of reading this thinking that Kyle Harrison is a stud, and you can skyrocket him to the moon right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. You refer to him as having a slider, and his is more of a slurve, that slider / curve, because it's a little bit slower than the average slider. And moving on the rubber really helped him against left-handed hitters, because he's able to locate that pitch and take that inner half of the plate back from the left-handed hitters, which is something that he really needed when you looked at what he was doing over the course of time. But there's a lot to be said here about the mental aspect of things. And as we talk about almost every week now, there's a mental aspect to playing baseball that's true in any business that you would be in, right? Which is, when you've been moved around a couple of times, he's still only 24 years old. That's the thing that people keep forgetting. I think he's been around for 4 years. He was in and out with the Giants, and then the Red Sox had him, and they didn't really know what to do with him or how to fix him. And now all of a sudden you have a situation where he's become not only an effective pitcher, but a dominant one, and is really a large part of the Brewers' continued run of success in the National League Central. Can we talk about them for a minute? I know we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Is there a team that gets more out of guys in baseball than what Pat Murphy does with the Brewers? Now, I don't want people to think that I'm anti-Cub, because the Brewers are probably my favorite National League team. They are really fun to watch, but they're making it work with cast-offs from a lot of other places. Jake Bauers has been awesome for them. Andrew Vaughn, former White Sox, jettisoned to them last year. They just make things work. David Hamilton, Luis Rengifo. They're getting daily at bats on this team, but that pitching staff, they rebuilt their pitching staff on the fly in the wintertime. They've got Mizorowski, who's homegrown. They have Shane Drohan, who's a guy that has been around a little bit, and people are starting to know who he is now. Harrison, Robert Gosser, Coleman Crow, Brandon Sproat, Logan Henderson, Quinn Priester, Brandon Woodruff. Now, those guys are hurt. Those last three, Henderson, Woodruff, and Priester, are hurt. All scheduled to be on the comeback trail, though. They're going to have starting pitching for days, and they just keep continuing to develop these young guys. Now, I know Sproat's not been great. I know Crow got lit up the other night. But the fact of the matter is that they just keep developing these guys, and it's like a clown car of pitchers. It never ends. They just keep getting out, and they've got useful guys. But the oldest guy in their rotation right now is Drohan. He's 27. So they've done some things there really nicely and really quickly. Tip of the hat to the Brewers for doing what they do. Harrison's been great.
And it goes back to like what he was saying about the system, is that they know what your bad habits are. They reinforce the good ones. They understand who you are. And I think, like, if you think about it in a workforce as well, it's you go to a job and they listen to you, they understand who you are, and they're not going to ask you to do something that either you can't do or you're uncomfortable doing. Think about how that would make you feel in your workforce. It feels like that's what they're doing here in Milwaukee, and that's why they're so successful, is that they truly do understand who they're working with and how to utilize and get the best out of them.
Yeah, I mean, they're 38-23 right now, 5-game lead over the Cardinals. The Pirates are 34-30. They're 5.5 out. The Cubs have struggled recently. They're 6.5 back right now, 33-31. But they have 5 teams there. All 5 teams in the National League Central are above 500, and yet the Brewers have a 5-game lead there, which is pretty remarkable. It's a tough division. Interesting one to watch for sure. Okay, Dave, we're going to take our first commercial break and come back with our next segment, going to kind of reference a Beatles song, When I'm 64, talking a little bit about aging players and where they are at in the lifespan of their career. We'll be right back. Okay, Dave, When I'm 64, I'm a lot closer to 64 than you are. I feel it too, pal. Let me tell you, I can feel it on a daily basis. It's creeping in there. We wanted to talk a little bit today in the show about some aging players that are struggling and maybe look at some underlying reasons why they're struggling. You found a few instances of players that have lost some bat speed, all in their early 30s to mid 30s. And we wanted to talk a little bit about these guys. Is this coincidence, or is this telling us a different story? And those players are Eugenio Suarez, who's 34, Christian Yelich, who's also 34, Corey Seager, age 32, Manny Machado, 33, and Salvador Perez, who we talked about a couple of weeks ago, as being these aging guys who are struggling. All of them have lost bat speed this year. I'm going to talk a little bit about how that's important. Dave, what common thread did you find with all 5 of these guys?
So, yeah, it was something that these were guys that first, when you think about these players, they've been good for a while, but then you look at their, the back of the baseball card and you realize, oh my God, they're in their mid 30s. And it's, what they say, after age 30, you're on the downward spiral, unfortunately, in baseball. And they're struggling this year. And I wasn't sure if they were struggling because it's aging or because it's injuries or something else altogether. So the common idea that I had here was that how were they doing against fastballs? What was their batting average against with fastballs? Because I've always been under the belief that as you get older, physically you're slower and it's harder to catch up to these fastballs.
Oh, yes.
So of these players, this is what I found. Suarez is hitting 200 against fastballs, but Christian Yelich is hitting 315 against fastballs, and he sees that 60% of the time. Corey Seager, after last night's home run, is hitting 190 off of fastballs, but he does have a 246 XBA. Manny Machado is hitting 207 against fastballs, and Salvador Perez is hitting 269 against fastballs. So looking at all 5 of those numbers, the discouraging signs here seem to go towards Eugenio Suarez, Corey Seager, and Machado. But then I also wanted to see how they were doing against breaking and off-speed pitches. Because what I was reading also was that as they get older, their nervous system slightly delays their reaction time, which makes them have to use their memory to guess. So they're guessing more as they get older, or at least that's the belief. So here's what they're doing against breaking and off-speed pitches. Now, keep in mind they're seeing these less and less as well. But Suarez, so I'm going to give you 2 per player, breaking and off-speed. Eugenio Suarez, 229 and 267, but both have an XBA under 200. Christian Yelich, 146 and 448. Corey Seager, 128 and 241. Manny Machado, 118 and 179. And then Salvador Perez, 155 and 125. And for reference, he was 244 against breaking pitches last year.
Wow.
So after all of this, and I know we gave out a lot of numbers here, the players that I'm most concerned about here for aging are actually Manny Machado and possibly Salvador Perez. The reason is the easier one is Perez. I know he's been going through a hip injury, but he's also 36 years old and he's still catching almost every day and he's playing pretty much every day. So there, at some point, old age has to catch up with him. But the one that really surprised me the most was Machado. He hasn't lost as much bat speed as anyone else, but he's struggling against all pitch types right now. And the red flag to me actually happened. Now we're recording Saturday, but it happened last night in an interview that he gave after a game, talking about how there's too much analytics in baseball, how there are so many pitchers with too many pitches to understand, and it's just to classify. He's under the mentality of see ball, hit ball, old school. You see the ball, you hit the ball. But it almost feels like, I don't know if the game's passing him by or if he's unwilling to accept that the game is changing and evolving. It was really alarming to see all of that last night. And he's one out of this list who's been healthy all year long. So of the 5, I'm most worried about Machado. And like I said, with Perez, I think it's almost time.
Yeah, you make some really compelling arguments there about these players. I think one of the things that we also talk about too, as you've brought up many times, is there an underlying injury? And we know a few of these guys have been playing banged up. Sal Perez is playing with the banged up hip. We know that Seager just kind of came back. He's always got a history of back trouble. Yelich as well. Backs don't get better with age, as we know. And so you do wonder if some of that has to do with the natural process of aging, if there's an underlying injury. But the other thing that we've talked about too, and I don't want to keep using it as an excuse, but it does make a difference, is the weather. I was sharing with you that the first game that we had played this spring, over the course of the coming summer, supposedly, it was over 75 degrees for the first time on Wednesday when we played our game. So we had played almost 30 games this year where there was no heat. And so we were getting used to playing in this like elongated spring / kind of winter weather that we were having. And you wonder if some of that has an impact on that as well. But you're also talking about 5 guys who have a lot of miles on those tires. They've been playing for a long time. These are all guys that came up as young players, going back to Machado at 19, Yelich was up when he was 20. These are guys that have been around for a long time. You just got to wonder a little bit about the wear and tear on those things and what's happening. I know we hope that they all rebound and continue to play well, but it's hard to know. Father Time remains undefeated last I checked.
I would say, though, I would try and buy low on all of them. Maybe not Salvador Perez, but I would try and buy low on the other 4. I think whoever rosters them right now is probably frustrated and probably a little bit worried. So if you could even do a swap of someone who is ranked lower at that position, but doing better right now, I think you could, because they're all veterans in the sense that I think they'll either pick it up or they'll make it work.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. I think, it's an interesting thing to really kind of talk about and think and mull over. There's a lot of fantasy players that will not draft guys in this age group just because they're afraid of those breakdowns. I don't know if you want to have a fast and hard rule about something like that, but it is good to consider when you're comparing players, as you just mentioned. Kind of in the same vein as that, Dave, shifting a little bit, I want to talk a little bit about a couple of outfielders and then a couple of pitchers that are aging as well, and where we stand on looking at these guys. When are we going to expect this downward spiral, I guess, for these guys? And the first two guys that we wanted to compare on that are outfielders Aaron Judge, who ironically is now out for 4 to 6 weeks at bare minimum, it looks like, with this injury that he has, and Mike Trout. So Aaron Judge is 34. Mike Trout is turning 35 in August. Both are injury prone. What do you think about those two guys? When do you think we're going to start seeing these breakdowns coming?
It's really interesting because Judge had done a really good job of almost making us forget that he had a lot of injuries earlier in his career.
Mm-hmm.
And he was out for significant amounts of time, but he's done a good job over the last few years, just, staying healthy, relatively healthy, and any injuries have been fluke. But yeah, now he's out for months, and he might be out for who knows how long because of the stress reaction going on there. The difference is Mike Trout, he's had multiple injuries and surgeries year after year. But you look at him this year, he's still hitting the ball hard. He's still doing really, really well doing Mike Trout things, but it's like a new Mike Trout. I don't think he's going to run like he used to, but I think we can expect some power with not a low batting average, but like one that won't kill you, but one that won't help either. So a decently low batting average. I think of the two, if I had to pick one that could last longer, I think, as weird as it sounds, I might take Mike Trout. I know he's a year older and he has a more extensive history, but Judge is 6'7", and I don't know how long his body can withstand the wear and tear that it does. That's not to say he's not going to be an elite hitter, but I think we could see Trout in the league for another 3 to 4 years doing this, especially if he can embrace playing less out in the center field and maybe even embrace a DH role. I think he can stay. And I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but I'll take Trout staying at this level over Judge staying at his current level longer.
The interesting point to that, I think, is we have this tendency, as fantasy players and as people who are big baseball fans, to look at guys like Judge and Trout and think that, oh, they're bulletproof and that nothing's going to happen. To your point about those things, I think Trout is embracing a new normal, right? He's got 5 stolen bases, but he's got 14 home runs, and his batting average is about 230 last I checked, but expected batting average was quite a bit higher. So he's actually still doing like some really nice things with playing baseball. And if he sustains that, and if he can kind of stay there, I think that you're right about what you said. Even though when you look at the data, Judge played 152 games last year. He played 158 the year before. But he's had years where he's only played 102, 112, 106. And you wonder about the cumulative toll based on his size and how big of a man he is. And let's face facts. I'll say this: the Yankees have abused him. They had him playing center field because he could do it, because he's a stud. The guy's just an unbelievable baseball player. Anybody in their right mind would look at that and say, yeah, we can maybe do this for a period of time, but do you really want to subject him? Playing center field is way different than right or left field. It's way different. You have to cover way more ground. There's a lot more speed that's used there. There's a lot more stop and go. There's a lot more wear and tear, in my opinion, on that playing center field. And so when you do that to a guy that's also your best hitter and the guy that's the foundational piece of your team, I just wonder how brilliant of a move that is to do that. Now, That being said, they do have a glut of outfielders in New York, and they'll probably be able to survive it in the short term. But ribs are tricky things. May I reintroduce you to Tristan Casas? Right? I mean,
Yeah.
you just never know how those things are going to come back. And the fact that he is a monster, 6'7", 270 pounds, runs like a gazelle, but swings also like a maniac. This injury, he said, came in April. What are you doing? What are you doing, guys? Why continue to run him out there? He's the most prized possession that you have on your team. Ironically, right as you're getting back your pitching, Rodon is back. Garrett Cole is back. Now you're going to be without your best hitter for 4 to 6 weeks, and that's the best case scenario. He might not make it back, or he might be back and be a shell of himself. What are you doing?
He himself said that he wanted to stay in because he saw the state of the team and he wanted to help. But okay, I'm not a doctor, but I think him being out there not only made it worse for him physically, but like look at him on the field. He had 5 home runs in May, and he wasn't the same player at all.
No.
He was striking out and getting out. So unfortunately for him and for the Yankees, he made it worse by going out there. He probably made that injury go from a stress reaction to a stress fracture.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks before he's re-examined. That's not even 4 to 6 weeks before he's back out there. That's not his timeline. That's his timeline to get re-examined. So there's a chance that he is out until, I don't even want to say it, but almost September.
Correct. Correct. And then you're a team that's fighting for you're in the playoff race with the Rays right now. They're a game and a half behind the Rays as we sit here on Saturday morning at 37-26. Why on earth would you not have shut them down 4 weeks ago?
Yeah. And I know Aaron Boone said that it was brought to his attention only recently. Apparently the staff, the medical staff knew about it, but not Boone, I believe, I think. If that's the case, that's a whole other issue in and of itself. But if everyone knew and they did nothing about it, that's a problem.
Well, now I need Colton Cowser to step up. He's actually been playing pretty well.
Yeah, he has.
Okay, one more, Dave, on this. We're going to talk a little bit about pitchers here. And we're talking here about Chris Sale, who's 37, and Jacob deGrom, who's 38. We kind of compared those guys. What concerns do you have there, and who do you think might be able to stand the test of time better here?
This is a tough one because they're both injury prone in the sense that they've had a lot of time missed. I've been thoroughly impressed and surprised by Jacob deGrom simply because he's been able to go out there, stay healthy, change the way that he's been pitching. I know there was a lot of talk about if he could lower his velocity a little bit more, that would help him stay out on the field. He's been able to do that somewhat, but I mean, he is creeping back up there, almost back to where he was.
Mm-hmm.
All that being said, I think out of the two, I'll take Chris Sale. He's 1 year younger, and he doesn't throw as hard as as deGrom does. He's like a 95 or something like that right now. So I'll take Sale. He's younger, and he's also on the Braves, who year after year impressed me with what they can do with their pitching. Yeah, of the two, I'll take him. What are your thoughts? Who do you think would stay at this level of where they are right now?
Boy, Sale's been really consistent, and you're right. The velocity with him is less. And not that 95 is less. His velocity has actually ticked up a little bit this year, based on when you look at the metrics and see where he's at.
Yeah,
he's had some good luck. The K rate's down a little bit for him. I mean, 29.3, we're quibbling, right? He gives up some hard hit baseballs now and then. He's 37. He's got almost 2,200 miles on that arm. I love both of them. Obviously, Sale was a White Sox for a long time, so I got to see him up close and personal. deGrom is showing some cracks, even though he's been really good. I'm going to agree with you on Sale. The fact that deGrom is giving up a lot harder hits, if you look at the StatCast, it's really kind of wild to look at, and it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal, but he's averaging the highest hard hit rate of his career so far, even though his strikeout rate still is high, above 30%. It's not vintage deGrom, although it's still really, really good deGrom. I will be intrigued this summer to see what ends up happening with the Rangers. If the Rangers do not stick in it, would they be willing to eat some contract to move deGrom and get some younger pieces? deGrom just hasn't pitched as much as Sale. He's only got 1,600 career major league innings, and he's got 100 wins in that time, which is pretty remarkable when you think about it. I think I would go with you on Sale on that one too. I just think that the way that he goes about pitching is a little bit different and less about dominating and making people look foolish, and he just gets people out. And he's on a better team. The team context is better for him there as well, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, Dave, we're going to take one more ad break here, and we're going to come back with our mental health moment. And we're back. So to cap off this show this week on All About Aging, Dave and I are both aging veterans, veterans at school, veterans of life, all of the things that kind of go along with that. A lot of times as we get older, we find that people reject aging. They do things, or they embrace things about themselves to make themselves appear younger. And people don't seem to really want to age, quote unquote, gracefully. You see a lot of people that are doing the fake tanning, people that are doing Ozempic, people that are taking all of these steps to try to appear younger than what they are. And I know it's something that you and I have talked about offline, but we wanted to bring it to the mental health moment this week. Dave, what are some things that you've done to either embrace or reject getting older? I mean, I guess there's some good rejection of getting older too, right? Staying in shape and, trying to exercise the way that you do and whatnot. But what are some things that you've done? Have you changed some of your routines as you've gotten older as well?
I have, and it's been hard for me because I've always tried to be of the mentality that even though like age is just a number, and that it's all about how you feel up here. But it's been hard because physically I've noticed some changes in me. Like when I go to the gym, I've had to lower, the reps of what I'm doing. Or it was like a couple weeks ago, I went out for a bike ride, which I've done so often. And a couple years ago, I was riding for hours and hours. But last week, I had to stop 3 times and walk the bike. And it was actually very depressing. I was actually very hard on myself for a while there, because normally I'm out there grinding it out, and I just couldn't. And I've noticed differences too. Like I go swimming, but I've been swimming less or fewer. I try and go running, but I run less. And it's been harder for me up here to grasp that, down here, it's not what it used to be. I'm getting older, but I'm trying to embrace it in the sense that understanding that I am getting older, but that is okay. I can still do a lot of the things and still enjoy my life. So to help my body, I've been like I let my beard grow, and I've got some gray hair. And in the past, I would have shaved it all, but I'm embracing it here now. I haven't fully embraced it, is because I'm pointing to the top of my head, which is shaved almost every day. So when that comes in, that you'll know I've fully embraced aging. But no, I drink more water. I try and drink a lot of water every day. I've lowered the amount of alcohol I drink to almost nothing. And I try and eat healthy. I try and eat healthier foods that can stay in my body with, higher fiber, stuff like that, to just keep what's going inside of me the way it should be, to help, grow some muscle and keep me lean. And that's what I've been trying. And some days are better than others, but
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. I mean, I think the thing that I admire about what you do a lot is the exercising, and not only is that good for you physically, it's also good for you mentally and emotionally to have that exercise time, the riding, the walking, the swimming, to also get your mind clear for the next thing that you have to do once you get home. And you've done that since I've known you, which I've always admired that about you. for me, I think it's more of I'm trying to walk more. I'm trying to make some small changes with those things. My only activity really comes from when I'm on the baseball field, and that can be a lot. It's, some moments, but it's not enough to sustain for the week. And so I'm trying to add in some more walking, getting some extra steps where I can, parking the car a little bit further away if I can. Also, at work, getting up from my desk and moving around quite a bit more. And I also have a bike, and so I need to get out on the bike more. I'm going to try to do that this afternoon if the weather cooperates here. But for me, I think it's been a process of, I don't really have much choice about aging, and you're going to do that, and you have to choose how you're going to go with that. And so I've really tried to more closely monitor how much caffeine I put into my body, how much alcohol I put into my body. I'm not allowed to drink anything more strong than beer, which is good. That took away some of those muscles, the old whiskey muscles that I had in the 20s and 30s, where, as my wife says, whiskey and testosterone do not mix well. And she's right. So I think I've done those things, and I've tried to do a little bit harder with that. But the one thing that I think that I've done as I've gotten older is more mental than physical, which is I worry less about meaningless things. I used to get so worked up about some things that really had no bearing on the bottom line. Like here's an example. This week on my truck, the brakes are squishy. We're going to be on vacation in a few weeks up in northern Michigan, and I want to make sure that the car is fixed and right. Back in the day, the idea that I would drop $1,000 to get my brakes fixed would be like poison to me. I would ruminate on it for days. I'd say, God, where's this money going to come from? I don't want to do this. And I would just keep driving it literally until the wheels fell off. Right. And so now as I'm getting older, I'm like, okay, you know what? It's just money. Sometimes I have more of it than what I do at other times. I'm going to learn to let that go a little bit. I'm going to get the car fixed so that I don't get any of us hurt on the way and running around in vacation up in northern Michigan, right? Because if it goes out there, then you got a real problem. So just being proactive about stuff like that and really kind of thinking about that and really just trying to be more profoundly living in the moment. I know that we have busy Saturdays coming up, but you and I get to spend an hour together every Saturday morning talking about baseball. And it feels really natural, and it feels really easy, and it's become part of my weekly schedule, and I love that. And I find that those types of moments really help me ingratiate to the ones that are a little bit harder moments. I've got some difficult things at work coming up next week, but I'm not there right now. It's a Saturday. I'm going to go home and spend some time with my family. Both of my kids are home and around today. We'll probably do something stupid like get a pizza and watch movies later on. And those are the moments that I've come to really learn to enjoy and accept as I've gotten older, and just know that I don't have, because of my illnesses with the rheumatoid arthritis, I'm not going to live to be 90, and that's okay. I want to try to make as much of what I'm doing right now count as hard as I can so that I can create those core memories for my kids. It's funny when I talk to my kids about it, Dave, because I'll say like, what are things that you remember? Like when we take our vacations, like what's our most memorable vacation? And a lot of times, you expect kids to say, oh, it was when we went to do such and such. And it was when we went to Disney or whatever it was. For my kids, it's always about that time that the four of us spend together. And I really enjoy that about my kids. I mean, they drive me crazy on one hand, but at the same time, the fact that they really enjoy those smaller, quieter moments when we got the record player running at home and we're making dinner together or whatever, that's what they seem to really enjoy. And that's what I also really enjoy too. So embracing the aging process is a huge part of who we are and what we have to do. And how we do that really kind of adds value or detracts value from our lives. And so I'll kind of leave you with that thought for this Saturday. Dave, anything that you want to add to that as a kind of a capstone to this episode 9 of Breakfast with the Beats already? Holy cow.
The only thing I will add, two things. One, I love that your kids love spending time with you, because you never know, even the smallest moments, you never know how important they are to someone else. So a small moment to you could be a big moment to someone else.
Sure.
And the other thing is my quote for the week. It kind of ties into what we're talking about here about aging, and it ain't over till it's over.
Yogi.
So, we all have a lot left to give to this world, so let's make the most of it.
Yeah, and let's remember too, guys, it's June, and June is Men's Mental Health Month, right? So we want to make sure that we're tying in on that stuff, but check in on your buddies, especially the ones that are quiet, especially the ones that might not have much to say. Dave and I always have a lot to say. We're fine. But a lot of other people are not and struggling really quietly with some inner demons. And so, make sure that you reach out to your buddies and check in on them, take them out for coffee, go out for lunch, whatever it might be. Even just a quick phone call to somebody to let them know that you're thinking about them can really make a big difference to people in their lives. With that, Dave, I will leave you to the rest of your Saturday. I hope that those of you who are listening have a great weekend. Let's get those fab runs in this weekend, figure out how you're going to replace Aaron Judge, and we will go from there. We will be back next week. We're hoping with a special guest, and we will get back to you then. But until then, have a great week. Take care of yourselves. Peace. Take care. We will see you next weekend.